So I actually have a riddle for you today.
Oh, nice. I love riddles. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I want you to imagine the absolute hardest type of home to sell in today's real estate market.
Yeah.
Like what instantly comes to mind for you?
Probably something falling apart, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Is it the house with like a blatantly leaky roof where there are just giant brown water stains all over the living room ceiling?
Oh, yeah. That's a nightmare.
Or maybe it's the one with an incredibly outdated, bright avocado green kitchen, straight out of like 1974.
Honestly, some people might like the retro vibe, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Right. Or maybe you're picturing a house parked literally right next to a constantly roaring 8-lane highway where the windows just rattle every single time a truck goes by.
Well, I mean, it's completely natural to assume it's one of those physical nightmares. We are practically wired to look at structural defects or geographic disasters and just assume they are the ultimate deal breakers
Yes.
because it just feels completely intuitive that a sinking foundation or a terrible location would be the biggest possible barrier to getting a transaction done, you know?
It does feel intuitive, but, and here's the crazy part, the data tells a completely different story.
Really?
Yeah. The hardest home to sell on the market isn't the outdated one. It's actually not the broken one, and it's not the one next to the highway.
Wait, so what is it?
The absolute hardest home to sell is simply the overpriced one.
Wow. Okay, yeah, which actually serves as a brilliant baseline for us today. Because diving into this source material, this strategy guide on the high cost of overpricing, it's about so much more than just selling a house.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Exactly. We are looking at a literal masterclass in market perception and human behavioral economics.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We're really exploring this dangerous, often completely invisible gap between what makes perfect rational sense on paper to a seller, sitting at their kitchen table, and how a highly complex, interconnected market of human beings actually behaves in reality.
I love that. And to really grasp why overpricing fails so spectacularly, we kind of have to start by stepping into the shoes of the seller.
Oh, for sure. Empathy is key here.
Yeah, we need to look at the underlying psychology driving the decision to overprice because, I mean, nobody wakes up,
Yeah.
calls their broker, and thinks, hey, I want to totally sabotage my chances of selling my house today.
Right. No one does that intentionally.
Exactly. They are doing it for a reason that feels incredibly logical to them at the time.
Well, the root cause is almost never pure, unadulterated greed. It's actually driven by a profound sense of loss aversion.
Loss aversion. Okay, break that down for me.
Basically, it's fear. Specifically, the visceral terror of leaving money on the table. If you are selling what is likely your most valuable financial asset, the idea of walking away from that closing table thinking you could have somehow squeezed out another $20, $30, or even $50,000, it's paralyzing.
It's like the ultimate fear of missing out, but applied to your own life savings.
Exactly. So to counteract that fear, the seller does something that feels highly protective. They build in a price cushion.
A cushion. Okay,
Oh,
let's invent a scenario here to make this concrete for everyone listening.
sounds good.
Say the objective market data, like the comparable sales in the neighborhood shows a house is worth exactly $500,000.
Okay, 500K.
The seller looks at that and says, well, let's list it at $550,000. The internal logic there is that this artificially inflated number protects their equity.
Right, it gives them room to breathe.
Exactly. Gives them a $50,000 buffer to negotiate down, letting the buyer feel like they won a massive victory, while the seller still hits their secret target of 500.
And, the rationale makes total sense if you apply it to almost any other area of our lives.
Right. I mean, if I'm selling a used car on the internet and I really want $5,000 for it, I'm absolutely going to list it for $6,000.
Of course. That's just haggling 101.
Or think about salary negotiations. The standard corporate wisdom is that you always anchor your first offer high.
Yeah, ask for more than you want.
You ask HR for more money than you actually expect to get, they counter lower, and you meet in the middle. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this. If anchoring high works flawlessly at a weekend flea market or in a corporate boardroom, the million-dollar question is why this exact same paper logic turns into an absolute disaster in real estate.
It's a great question. And it fails because real estate does not happen in an information vacuum.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, in a salary negotiation, you and the HR rep have what we call asymmetric information. You don't know exactly what their absolute maximum budget is, and they don't know the absolute lowest number you'd accept.
Oh, that makes sense. You're both sort of flying blind.
Exactly. And in that environment of hidden information, anchoring high creates leverage. You set a ceiling, and the entire negotiation takes place below that artificial roof you just built. But the modern housing market is an aggressively transparent, highly educated, data-rich environment. Both sides are staring at the exact same information on their screens.
Oh, wow. So the secret is kind of already out.
Yeah, exactly. In this specific arena, overpricing doesn't create a negotiation ceiling. It creates total silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
Because the market isn't just some naive participant at a yard sale who doesn't know the true value of an antique chair.
Precisely. The market is a highly sophisticated algorithmic mechanism. Today's serious buyers, the ones who actually have the financing ready and drive the market forward, they are heavily educated.
Oh, they've been obsessively swiping through listings on their phones for 6 months.
Right. They have push notifications set up. They know down to the exact dollar what a renovated 4-bedroom house in their specific target zip code is worth.
So when they see our hypothetical house listed at $550,000, they immediately spot that $50,000 discrepancy.
They see it instantly.
And they aren't fooled by the anchor.
Mhm.
They don't look at it and say, oh, I'm going to go in there like a shark and negotiate this down to 500.
No, not at all. They simply perceive the seller as unreasonable, and they literally just scroll right past the listing. They don't engage at all.
They just ghost the house.
Exactly. But there's also a deeply technical reason for this silence, too. It's the search parameters.
No, like the filters on the apps.
Yeah. If a buyer is pre-approved for $500,000, they set the maximum filter on their real estate app to $500,000.
Oh, man, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. By pricing the home at $550,000, the seller has literally made their property invisible to the exact pool of buyers who would actually purchase it. The house doesn't even populate on their screens.
The seller basically priced themselves out of the algorithm entirely.
Completely.
So the seller is just sitting in their living room, keeping the house perfectly clean, making the beds every morning, waiting for the phone to ring, and absolutely nothing is happening.
Just crickets.
And while that silence is happening, the most destructive force in real estate is quietly working against them, time on the market.
The ticking clock. It is brutal. In real estate, the days on market counter is like a digital scarlet letter.
A scarlet letter, wow.
It really is. Every single day, a property sits unsold. It accumulates psychological baggage. There is a well-documented behavioral shift here known as the stale listing effect.
The stale listing effect. Okay, how does that work?
Well, initially, when a listing hits the market, it's thrilling. It benefits from the novelty factor. Buyers rush to see fresh inventory.
Right, everyone wants the new shiny thing.
Exactly.
Right.
But as the first weekend passes and then a second and then a month goes by, buyers start looking at that counter ticking up to 30, 40, or 50 days, and their internal narrative flips.
They stop asking, how fast can we go see it? And they start asking, wait, what's wrong with it?
Yep, that is exactly the shift.
It reminds me of walking past a restaurant on a Friday night.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, imagine you are walking down a vibrant, super busy street looking for a place to eat. You see a spot where the menu looks fantastic, the decor is beautiful, the lighting is warm, but you look through the window and the dining room is completely empty.
Not a single person inside.
Right. And then the place next door has a line out the door. You never look at the empty restaurant and think, wow, I have this hidden gem all to myself.
No, your brain immediately signals danger.
Exactly. You assume the food is terrible, or the service is awful, or they just failed a health inspection. Even if the kitchen is serving literal Michelin star food, the total lack of a crowd forces you to assume something is fundamentally broken. Your perception of the quality is dictated entirely by the herd.
That restaurant analogy perfectly encapsulates the psychological weight of the stale listing effect.
It's all about perception.
Exactly. Think about the devastation of that shift for a home seller. The physical structure of the house hasn't changed one bit since day one.
The roof is still solid.
Right, the hardwood floors are still gorgeous, but the asset has literally transformed in the market's eyes. Herd mentality has relabeled it.
Wow.
It has mutated from a fresh opportunity into a problem property, and that transformation happens solely because of the artificial price cushion inflating the days on the market.
So our seller, sitting in their now problem property, eventually has to face the music.
Yeah.
It's been 5 weeks. The silence is deafening.
Boop.
They call their agent and say, okay, fine, let's pull the lever, drop the price to $500,000.
They finally blink.
Yeah, they remove the cushion and put the price exactly where it should have been on day one. But here is where the psychology gets incredibly tricky in the source material. A lot of sellers assume a price reduction is just a simple math correction.
It's logical to think that.
Right, but the data shows that instead of fixing the problem, a price cut triggers a completely new set of psychological traps.
It's a brutal trap because the seller thinks they are just changing a digit on a screen. Like, I was at X, now I'm at Y.
Simple as that.
But a price drop is not a neutral mathematical adjustment. It is a fundamental alteration of the seller's negotiating position. It broadcasts a glaring neon signal to the entire market.
It's essentially broadcasting blood in the water.
It really is. It signals 3 very specific things to a buyer. First, it confirms that the seller is willing to compromise. Second, it publicly admits that the seller misjudged the market initially, like they were wrong.
Ouch. Yeah.
And third, and probably most importantly, it signals that the seller is likely feeling a rising sense of desperation. The ticking clock is getting a lot louder for them.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second on behalf of a listener who might be thinking about standard retail logic here.
Sure, go for it.
If the house was $50,000 overpriced and the seller officially drops it by $50,000 down to its true objective market value, shouldn't that make it a fair deal?
You would think so.
Right. Why wouldn't buyers just see the new price, agree that it's fair, and submit an offer for $500,000? Why do they suddenly get predatory?
Because buyers don't operate in isolation, they are guided by professionals. When that price drops, the buyer's agent is analyzing the history of the listing.
Oh, the agent is looking at the metadata.
Exactly. The agent sees a seller who has been sitting on the market for 40 days and just blinked. The agent's fiduciary duty is to get the best possible deal for their client.
So they smell the desperation.
Totally. So they advise the buyer, hey, they just dropped it to 500, which means they're motivated. Let's go in at 460 and see how desperate they really are.
Wow.
There is a fascinating metric that illustrates this, actually. Data often shows that a typical 5% price drop after 30 days usually results in incoming offers that are another 10% below that new asking price.
Wait, really? So by dropping the price to try and find the market, you actually embolden the market to drag you down even further?
Yes, it's a downward spiral.
The buyer isn't just looking at the new price. They are evaluating your behavior. You revealed that your initial boundary, the $550,000, was totally fake. So the buyer naturally assumes your new boundary of $500,000 is probably fake too.
Exactly. The leverage has entirely evaporated at that point. In any negotiation, human nature dictates that once you see the other side start retreating, you push to see exactly how far backwards they are willing to go.
It's just human nature.
Right. By trying to outsmart the market with a cushion, the seller traded the illusion of control for genuine vulnerability. The buyer now dictates the terms.
Man. So if anchoring high ruins your leverage by making you invisible, and then driving up your days on market, and then dropping the price signal's weakness that invites massive lowball offers,
Yep.
How do you actually win?
That is $1 million question.
Like, what is the actual mechanism for a seller to protect their equity and maximize their financial outcome without falling into these behavioral traps?
The mechanism requires entirely abandoning the concept of the cushion. The strategy that consistently yields the strongest financial outcomes, like the absolute highest closing prices, is not starting high. It is starting right.
Starting right. Which means embracing radical transparency.
Huh.
You price it at exactly what the objective data dictates. If the comps say 500,000, you list it at 500,000. Zero ego, zero padding.
You align strictly with reality. And when a seller has the discipline to actually do this, they initiate a highly predictable, incredibly powerful domino effect in the marketplace.
Okay, I love a good domino effect. What's domino number one?
Domino number one is immediate visibility. Because there is no inflated cushion, the house actually appears in the search results of every single buyer looking in that price tier.
The algorithm favors them.
Exactly. Those educated buyers see the listing, they instantly recognize the alignment between price and value, and they immediately book a showing.
They see a fair deal and they just jump on it.
Right. Which triggers domino number two. The wave of attention creates authentic urgency.
Because suddenly there are a lot of people looking at it.
Yes. Buyers show up to the open house and they aren't alone. They see three other couples walking through the living room. They see the agent's sign-in sheet is completely full.
Oh, that changes the vibe completely.
It does. The environment physically proves to them that they do not have the luxury of waiting. They can't sleep on it for a week.
Right.
And that urgency naturally triggers domino number 3, competition.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. I love looking at the mechanics of competition because it changes the entire power dynamic.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes me think of the strategy used at high-end auction houses. If an auctioneer is trying to sell, say, a rare vintage Ferrari, they don't start the opening bid at the absolute maximum pie-in-the-sky price anyone would ever conceivably pay.
Right, that would backfire.
Yeah, if they open the bidding at $20 million, the room would go dead silent. Everyone would just stare at their shoes, completely paralyzed. It'd be the exact same silence as the overpriced house.
Exactly the same.
Instead, they start the bidding at a very fair, sometimes even aggressively conservative number. They start at like 10 million.
They do that to get paddles in the air. Exactly. They want the paddles up. Because getting people into the game gets them emotionally invested. The fair starting price is the spark that ignites the bidding war.
That's a great way to frame it.
And by the time the hammer falls, the price is at $25 million, which far exceeds what a high anchor would have ever achieved.
That is the precise psychological engine you're trying to build when selling a home. By starting right, you transform your property into the prized asset at the auction. You are engineering a frenzy of interest.
It fundamentally shifts the concept of leverage for the seller.
Yes, it does. When you rely on a price cushion, you are relying on fake leverage. True leverage is having 3 different highly qualified parties who all desperately want what you have and who all know that if they don't agree to your terms, the guy standing next to them in the kitchen absolutely will.
Wow. Because at that point, you, the seller, are no longer negotiating against a buyer trying to pull their lowball offer up.
No, you step out of the ring entirely.
The buyers are now negotiating against each other. They are fighting to win.
And that dynamic is the single most effective way sellers end up closing at or significantly above their asking price.
It's brilliant.
They didn't artificially inflate the number to protect their money. They introduced the asset fairly and allowed the raw market forces of supply, demand, and herd mentality to organically drive the final number up to its maximum potential.
If you're listening to this, it really forces a total perspective shift on how markets function.
It really does.
I mean, we've gone from the cozy, seemingly rational comfort zone of the price cushion, where our instinct tells us to ask for more to protect what's ours, to understanding the digital and psychological realities of modern platforms.
Right. The algorithms change everything.
They really do. We looked at how algorithms and the days-on market counter create the stale listing effect, turning a beautiful home into a suspect property, much like that empty restaurant.
Such a dangerous trap.
And we explored the danger of the price cut, realizing it's not just a simple math fix, but a broadcast of desperation that buyers' agents are literally trained to exploit.
Exactly. Blood in the water.
And finally, we arrived at the counterintuitive reality that starting with radical fairness is actually the most aggressive strategy you can employ because it weaponizes competition in your favor.
The overarching lesson here is really about positioning. If your goal is to maximize your outcome, your strategy should never be to test the market to see what you can get away with.
No testing the waters.
Right. Your strategy must be to present your asset so clearly and fairly that the market is forced to compete over it.
It completely dismantles the old school rules of haggling.
It does. And, it leaves us with a really compelling question to consider beyond just real estate.
Oh, I like where this is going. What's the question?
Well, we've seen how starting exactly at market value drives the fiercest competition and secures the strongest leverage for a home seller. But how might this anti-anchoring strategy function in the rest of your life?
Okay, say more about that.
Like, if you are an entrepreneur pitching a new business idea to venture capitalists, or maybe if you're a freelancer sending a proposal to a massive new client, does starting with an undeniably transparent, radically fair deal actually give you more power in the room?
Oh, wow.
Does bypassing the traditional highball game create the exact kind of urgency and trust you need to make people compete to work with you?
That's a phenomenal concept to reflect on. Like, is the absolute best way to win a negotiation simply to be the most undeniably reasonable person in the room from the very first minute?
It's a powerful thought.
It genuinely makes you reevaluate the mechanics of every major transaction you enter. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning conventional wisdom, keep looking for the hidden mechanics driving the behavior around you, and remember, sometimes the most expensive mistake you can make is simply asking for too much. Catch you on the next deep dive.